Thank you for joining us. And I
Great.
want to start out, we're going to do a little Q&A with Mr. Witherspoon. So feel free to use the chat if you have questions for him. But Mr. Witherspoon, can you introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Yes. So I'm an IT professional. I've been doing IT for over 15 years. I love IT. I love everything about it. Um, I have recently gotten into real estate and love it. It's the way that a lot of folks have built generational wealth. It seems that just statistically speaking, that 8% of Black people in America own. That's a very low number, and it's for a reason. It was strategically done that way. It's been kept in generations for them to prosper, and it's time for us to wake up and say, "Hey, why are we paying somebody else's mortgage? Why are we renting? Why are we not owning? Why? That's my whole goal is to get your mindset off of of that type of mindset. Let's own. Why can't we? You can do the same thing. It doesn't take a lot to do it. It just takes some time and concentrate on what is important to you, especially as youth coming up. uh, I'll get into that a little bit later, but for years and years and years I was not qualified to own because I had two children that I paid child support for. And my argument was, well, if I can afford to pay rent, which was probably twice as much, why can't I afford a home? It was a way of leveraging, and basically you are profiled. So that's one of the passions that I have, just to let you know what your options are, to let you know that yes, you can do it. You have to plan just like everything else. Great point that Christy said. And I've been drilled in this in my head the last 10 years. A man without a plan plans to fail. If you don't plan, life is not going to just magically happen for you. If you've got to plan on everything that you do, everything that you said about planning is very important. It's just paramount. If you don't have a plan, guess what? Plan to fail. So I think that's a very valid point. So back to where I am now. So I have several properties that I'm doing multiple things with, renting and doing Airbnb, but it's leveraging me to be able to acquire more properties. And I want you guys to have a head start up front and use all of the knowledge that we're giving to you to don't become a renter. Say, hey, you know what? Even if you looking for the first time, hey, this apartment with three bedrooms is $1,500. Well, guess what? You can buy a condo with the same credentials, same three bedrooms, two bathrooms, and pay 500 something dollars. Stay in there for 2 years or a year. Rent that. Let that pay for your next venture in your real, in your just your future. So don't get caught up in, oh, well, I got to rent because I don't know if I'll be here for that long. It doesn't matter. Even if you, like I said, if you get a place, you're going to go somewhere in another year or so, let that money make money for you and move on. I'll talk more about that later. I just want to do a brief introduction and let you know where I'm at. Like I said, IT, I thrive on IT. I love it. I love the technology. I love the way it changes. I've been there where we started off with dial up. Now we're getting gigs down. So that's pretty much where I'm at. This is a brief introduction of what I do and what I'm looking forward to doing.
So, Mr. Douglas, so let me just kind of break this apart in the time we have with you. So, you're a professional, you have a professional job in IT, and even you have another stream of income with getting involved in real estate investment. So, and then I heard you share with our young adults that they should be focusing or considering buying instead of renting. You mean to tell me they don't have to wait until they're 30 years old and 40 years old to buy their first property? What would you
Mm,
share with young people about buying in their 20s?
okay, so here's my experience. Uh, in my 20s, I had children that I was not expecting. That happens a lot. So one thing, kind of aside from everything we're talking about, don't be so casual of just laying up with someone and having a child. Plan it. Make sure you're financially responsible and ready for it because it will hold you back. It took me up until 8 years ago where I even was able to get a loan because I said, Mr. Witherspoon, you pay too much in child support. So uh, plan, uh, you know, plan. If that means you have to get fixed at 18 and say, hey, when I'm ready, I'll get unfixed. I've offered that to my son where, okay, things happen. You might have a wild night that can cause you problems. Secondly, um, yes, it was a bit of a venture for me because of my situation. But guess what? My first home, guess how much I had to pay to get into that home? I want to just take a poll and say, if you think that I paid more than 10 grand to get into it, if you can just put yes in the chat. If you think I paid less than 10 grand, put no in the chat. Okay. Okay. So my first home, guess what? I didn't pay a dime. I had 100% financing from my credit union. I didn't have to put a dime down. They damn near paid me to get into the place, which was surprising. Some credit unions offer 100% financing. So that's a myth that I want you to get out of your head. Oh, I got to have 20%. People just say, oh, Lord, I got to have 20, 40, 50, 60 grand to get into a home. That's not the case. In lots of cases, they have first time buyer programs where they actually pay for your closing costs. They pay for everything. They practically pay you to get into a home because they're tired of these investors grabbing up all these properties and no one's owning. You don't want to get into that rat race, just like she spoke of renting and renting and renting. You're paying other people's mortgages. I'll give you a prime example. I have a condo in not far from here right now that my mortgage is $534. That thing rents for $1,600. So I leverage it for Airbnb because it will bring me even more income. But and also there's another great program, FHA. FHA loans require 3.5% down versus 20% of a traditional loan. That's a great point that I can't pronounce the name. Great point. You have to pay insurance on it, which is a little bit more. But guess what? That first getting your foot in the door of the $100,000 home paying $3,500 down, great avenue. Get your foot in there, get you in there, make a decision in 2 years, you can probably move out, rent that place out, and that'll pay for your next mortgage and also pay for that mortgage. So it's very attainable. It's just having the knowledge. These are things that they don't teach you in school. So I'm gonna just kind of leave it off with that. But I'll give you more information. I am available. We'll leave my contact information if you have more questions. But I think this is a real big disconnect on how we are moving forward with housing.
So you just helped to dispel the myth that you don't have to wait until you're in your 30s and 40s to be a homeowner. There's first-time home buyer programs. They're looking for young adults to prepare themselves and to be able to enter the workforce, graduate from college. And you can really, even while you're in college, I think you sent me something earlier this week about a mother and son who was buying a property and he was renting out rooms up to college students and he was 22 years old.
Exactly. So here's another great advantage that you can do. It's called house hacking, where you would purchase a multi-family home, which basically is a duplex. You've got one house on one side, one on the other. You could obtain that for practically the same price as you would buy a regular home. Here's the thing. You got somebody on the other side that's paying your mortgage. They're not only paying your mortgage or the promissory note, which is really called, they're actually putting money in your pocket. So if you structure yourself while you're looking and saying, hey, you know what, this two duplex thing sounds really attractive. Well, it's super attractive. It's almost like, I can't say the word, but it's very sexy. So what you can do is purchase that home that you have 2 bedrooms, 1 bath on one side, the same thing on the other. You can stay there for a year or so. Then guess what? You can bounce out. You can rent both of those out, and that'll pay for your mortgage, your promissory note for that home, and also will also cover your mortgage for your new home. So that's a very valuable piece of information as far as how it's called house hacking. And it's a very easy way to get into it. It leverages, it gives you a place to stay while you get yourself together. You stay there for a year, you save up 20% or 3.5 based on whatever you want to look for. And then that will pay for that. And then you're on to your next one. And you could just build from that on. Like that is a very solid way. And I wish I'd have known that, just like I need to write a book like Christy did. I wish I'd have known that 20 years ago. But hey, here I am. I'm just, you know what? It's never too late. If you're still alive, you can still do it.
You're right. So what would you tell anyone who's thinking about home ownership? Because I've had a number of properties, and when I think about renting, I cringe because you always worry about maintenance issues or people destroying your property. What would you tell young people about handling maintenance associated with home ownership?
So that's another myth. I have a coworker that I've been working with for 5 years, and she's, oh, I just don't. If something goes wrong, what I'm going to do? Here's a story with this lady, uh, who I'm just very discreet, but she's mindset. She makes payments on shoes, on Jordans. Like I'm like, why are you paying for Jordans and you don't have a house? So long story short, so her landlord, she had a problem with her toilet. So the landlord was so, I don't know what you want to call it. He basically went to their house and took the toilet out from the bathroom for 2 days and just took it and repaired it at home versus just giving them a new one. And I'm like, if that's not a sign of you need to get the hell out and get your own place, then what is? She's painting, she's painted the place, she's added value to the home. All she's doing is paying for that guy's mortgage and probably for whatever lifestyle he's living right now. So long story short, uh, own. Get what you do is if you're scared about that, if you're feeling like, oh, what I'm gonna do if something goes wrong, get you a home warranty. A home warranty costs just like a premium, like insurance. If something goes wrong, you do pay a deductible, probably 500 or 1,500, depending on how, if you choose the lower deductible, of course, it's going to be a higher premium. But what that guarantees is that if your AC unit goes out, guess what? You pay that $500 deductible, you keep it moving. They replace it. That's probably about the highest cost item in a household. Can go from anywhere from 5 grand to 20 grand, depending on what it is. But guess what? It's just like anything else. You find a way to remedy that. Don't let that scare you away. The myth of, oh, well, if something goes wrong, what am I going to do? Well, that's insurance for that.
Mhm.
Don't let that be deterrent. Do not let that be deterrent. Because guess what? That landlord is going to pay for it, and you're already paying for it because you're overpaying in the rent anyway.
Good point. And I'm going to crack a joke here and say, in that example with the landlord taking the toilet out, I hope they had more than one bathroom in the house because that would be a tough situation.
That's the thing. No, and her mother's elderly, so that's the sad part. Yeah.
Okay, well, moving on.
Hmm.
So I will say, I will echo the having home warranty, having a home warranty. I never have a property without it. I think I might pay $100 bucks a month or whatever, a little bit more, a little bit less. But I would never own another property without having it because if the hot water heater, the HVAC system, one of your big systems go out, I pay 75 bucks. They come out and if they can't fix it, they replace it within the contractual agreement and arrangement we have. But it's a great way to give you a lot more sense of ease when you don't feel like you have to come out of pocket extensively every time you have a home maintenance type of issue. So now I want to pivot, Mr. Witherspoon, and ask you about careers. You talked about real estate being a lucrative career. And what would you share with young adults? Is it too early for young adults to start thinking about, getting a real estate license and actually selling real estate?
Yes. So surprisingly, the requirement to gain a real estate broker's license in every state of the United States is 18 years of age. Another thing is, if you're talking about, I've talked to countless amounts of folks that have degrees but do nothing related to the degrees. They've got student loan debt out to tell, uh, but they're not even doing what they went to school for. This, which I'm embarking on and embracing, costs me about $700 to take the class. The test is about $150 in the state of North Carolina. To maintain your license, there's 8 hours of continuing education that costs about $200 a year and about $50 to renew. So talking about something that here's a product, here's a vital part of the U.S. economy that basically sells itself. Everybody has to have a home. Um, the average person in North Carolina starting off makes about 60 grand a year. Now that's if you're just cruising, you're not really killing it. On the top end, you can make six figures your first year if you are diligent and you are passionate about what you're doing. Um, I'm pretty sure it's not far off in other states. Have not tested Virginia or other states, but starting off, that's a pretty nice little something to look forward to. Whereas you can pretty much, you don't have to punch a clock. You're working on your own schedule. You don't have to ask your boss, hey, can I take off for 2 weeks? You can schedule that. You can plan it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's hard work. Nothing's easy. But as far as an investment and getting started in a career where, you can learn a lot from real estate. Real estate is one of those things that's basically generational wealth. If you look at the people that are have very, most of the people that are in the top 5 or top 10 on uh, net worth definitely have a huge portion of their portfolio on real estate because guess what? Real estate doesn't go down, it only goes up. Of course, you've got crashes and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, everyone needs somewhere to live. There's someone in my neighborhood where I was having a conversation with one of his professionals, and I asked, "Hey, you provide plumbing service, And he said yes. And I work for this guy. He said he's got 250 rental houses in this county alone. So he's an older guy. He's about 90. He's passing it on to his children, which his dad passed on to his children. And I tell you what, it doesn't fail. It's going to be there. You got to have somewhere to live. They buy them for cheap. They fix them up. They keep people in there. They even have people at Section 8. They don't really care. They just want that check coming in every month that covers everything. So just to say, it's a very lucrative business. Uh, it doesn't take rocket science to, you have to study, you have to do what you need to do, but you have to be diligent. Nothing's easy. You're gonna have to spend the time, you're gonna have to work hard if you want to be in that top percentile. But definitely, if you look at some people that spend, I don't even know what the cost of college is these days. They spend 4 years in college. They don't know what they want to do. They get out and they're not even doing what they went to school for. And then Uncle Sam or whoever you get your money from wants their money. And it's a sad cycle. So this is a way to break that cycle. If something you're looking forward to. If you're interested in, I'll give you more information. But I tell you, there's a lot worse things you could be doing than real estate.
Right, because when I do the math, it sounded like I heard you say in the state of North Carolina, you paid $700 for a class. I mean, for the class, and then another 150 for the test. That's still under $1,000 versus the cost of a 4 year college for a year. Let's just say at an average of 30K per year times 4 years, it's $120,000. So for 1,000 versus 120,000, you could have a great career in real estate with no student loan debt and a
Exactly.
low cost initial investment into that career.
And you know what? It doesn't take a lot of time to do. If you choose that that's not your route and you give it a try, guess what? Your your investment is not that involved. And you know what? I can tell you this, that there's I'm tired. I've been working in IT for over 15 years and I'm physically just tired of punching the clock. I want to be able to say, okay, I'm working on this client. I will, I want to do this. I want to go on a trip. I want to do this. And it seems like I almost have to beg to get time off and it's never enough. And just that peace of mind to say, hey, you know what? This whole month, I'm just taking off. You know what? You're smart about what you're, and also in this industry is very different from any other industry because most of the time when you go to apply for a job, you're interviewing, you're trying to impress them. This is the total opposite. You interview them. You say, hey, what do you have? What's different about your firm that would make me attractive to you? What is your split on commissions? Like what kind of, so it's you pretty much write your own ticket. And unlike some fields, like in IT and medical, I can go pretty much anywhere in the US and work because IT's you got to have it. Medical, you have to have it. Guess what? Real estate, I can go to Hawaii. There's real estate there. People are going to buy, they're going to sell. You can pretty much go anywhere in the world, anywhere in the United States, I would say.
Good point. So, what would you say to young adults who might be interested in real estate and getting licensed, and they have to take it would be advantageous for them to take a training course? Are there different type of courses based on your learning style, like virtual or
Yes. So so
based or?
gone, so gone is the day of being brick and mortar in a building. There, that pretty much now since COVID, it's non-existent. You don't have to be in a building. You can sign up for a course. What I would suggest, what worked for me, is to have a course where you do have to live class where you're accountable. You have to be there. You can't miss more than 3 hours through the whole course. Uh, in the state of North Carolina, it was 75 hours of classes that you had to take. And so you had to be there. You couldn't just log in and click your picture video and be gone. You had to be there because guess what? This is valuable information. When you're talking about real estate, you're handling, and it's very stringent. You're handling life decisions here where people are making the most. Uh, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they don't want somebody that's a flunky that's barely able to do it. The test is stringent. It's stringent for a reason because you're handling literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of revenue. So you got to be on point. It's definitely a challenge. I'm more so on, I like to be there. I want to see what's going on. If I got questions I want to ask right there on the spot versus you have self-paced classes that you can take that are probably less, of course, because there's nobody live there. I would highly suggest if you are looking into it to enroll in a class that is accountable, that you have to be there. In the state of Virginia, it's actually only 30 hours that you need to qualify for becoming a broker or before you're able to actually take the test. So don't fool yourself and say, oh, well, I got to this class, I barely paid attention. But when you get to the test and you fail, then it's all for nothing. So, look at it, Google it, and say, hey, what I look for is the highest percentage of first time success with passing the state exam forever, whatever state you're in.
Mhm. Okay. And what about earning potential? Like, what would someone who's interested in the state kind of a range? I know it's not exact. It depends on how committed you are, how much you're selling, and that sort of thing. But what's that earning potential? A glance at it. What could it look?
So, so in the state of North Carolina, the average real estate consultant that's licensed and you're working as a provisional broker, which means you don't have an experience. You have to work in a firm with a what's called a broker in charge, which basically makes sure that he pretty much holds your hand. He makes sure you're not doing anything illegal. We make sure all the documents are signed. You can obtain about 60 grand as a rookie and build from there. Now, that's someone that's just doing the basics. Now, if you know people, if you're on social media, if you have to be selling. Like you can't just sit back and wait. Nobody's going to come and like I tell Christy sometimes, the yard's not going to cut itself. Like you got to make initiative to get out there and make yourself available. And it's not hard because people are buying and selling all the time. You just have to let them know, hey, I don't know if you know, here's my card. I represent this brokerage. If you're looking to buy or sell or know anybody, let me know. So guess what? It's not super easy. I'm not trying to say this is an easy profession, but it's easy to get into and it's not hard work.
Mhm. So someone just asked, can you address the uh I can't pronounce the word. I'm for some reason having
So
a
cyclical.
cyclical nature of the business and the impact of rates on your business.
I'm not understanding what you're asking. Can you be more direct?
Yeah. So asking about the cyclical nature. So you know how the real estate market has peaks and valleys, right?
It
Because of
does.
the economy. And so then you also have impacts to rates. And when rates are higher, people are more hesitant to buy versus when
Gotcha.
rates are lower. How does that impact your business?
Gotcha. Well, here's the thing. We all have to have somewhere to live, no matter what the rate is. In fact, people are buying more now because they know they're on a cusp. So what I've got from a couple of pages that I'm on Facebook is there's no perfect time. But if you don't take advantage of the time you have, so here's the thing about that. So yeah, the rates are a little high right now. As an investor, this is a great time because it gives you time to do due diligence. You can go and sign a contract and get 20 days to inspect this property, see where it is. Where back in COVID, where it was a high market where people were just buying unseen, not even doing inspections. There's a lot of people that got burned because they got these places that the HVAC system didn't even work, but they put all this money into it because what they were doing, they were greedy. They were buying without looking at it. So yes, of course, there's times, but there's not a time when nobody's going to buy and sell real estate. That just does not exist. So I would shy away from, oh, well, I'm not going to buy now because, well, guess what? The rates will go down in another year or so and refinance at that point. But don't let that be a deterrent. And I get what you're saying. Yeah, as a real estate agent, people were hesitant for a while, but guess what? Life goes on. People are coming in out of town all the time. They're going to buy no matter what. So I don't want you to look at that as a negative thing. Of course, there's going to be cycles where the interest rates are high. There's going to be times where it's a buyer's market versus a seller's market. But guess what? People are still buying and selling. So there's no, every real estate agent I know are doing just fine. There's no discrepancy in their pay. They're getting paid. The commissions are even higher right now.
Okay. So it sounds like regardless of what season we're in with interest rates, you got to find a way to look for the opportunities and leverage the opportunities with whatever cycle we're on with the interest rates.
Exactly. So look, let me give an example of that. So, someone first time home buyer back when COVID was going on, and even when I was purchasing a condo not far away from here, I was bidding on homes and I was just getting outbid. These investors had 10 to 15 to 20 grand that they would just throw on top. I didn't have the extra money to do. I lost out on deals because people just had more capital. But guess what? I was lucky enough to have a realtor that said, "Hey, I got this one deal. It's off the table. If you make an offer for what they're asking, it's yours." I jumped on that like it was no tomorrow because if an investor would have had that, they would have put, "Oh, I'm putting $15,000 more," pushes you out the day. So here's another thing to realize about the industry. It's very biased. It's people with money will always trump you. And that's the thing about it, what makes it sick. Whereas you're a first time home buyer, you're looking, you finally find something. And then some guy that has 20,000 properties puts 10 grand on top of you, and your bank only is going to allow the amount that it's worth, then you're stuck. So now really is the opportune time where it's not that competitive right now. If you find it, I know the rate's a little high, but guess what? Down the road, you can refi and you have cut the middleman out immensely. Like you don't even have competition right now.
And tell them what refinance is. It's when you can.
So here's the thing. It's the refinancing. So initially when I bought my first home, when I purchased my first home, I had a 4.75% interest rate, which I thought was great at the time, and it was, right? So when all this COVID and things happened and the interest rates dropped, I refinanced my home. I got the cash out. I got out 16 grand out of my home that I've lived in for a few years. And guess what? I used that to buy a condo with a 2.9% interest rate. The 16 grand I had to pay because it was my second mortgage. So I couldn't do no money down. But guess what? I got that money just sitting here. Let's use it. So now I got a 2.95% on my condo, 3.25 on my home. I'm leveraging that. I'm making money, but I'm not going to refi right now because look at the interest rates. Why am I going to? Here's what those people even actually doing now. They're actually selling. They're telling people, you give me 50 grand, I'll let you take my interest rate, which right now you said it's about 7.6.8 point, and you're going to offer them a 2.95% rate. They're willing to pay that 50 grand up top to save on that interest, which is going to drop in a couple of years anyway. It's just leveraging what you have and taking advantage of what's out there.
Good points. So as we wrap up with Mr. Douglas, because we're at the end of our segment with him, I want to end with a question or point I've been reiterating with the young adults over the last day or so, and that is following instructions and paying attention to details. How important is that in real estate? When I heard you talk about you're handling thousands, if not millions of dollars of people's hard-earned money, how important is paying attention to what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw a couple links in the chat here. Know what your credit score is. Don't walk into a situation where, even if you're initially going to rent and you go there, it's the perfect place you want, and then they pull up your credit score and they're like, dude, yeah, you're wasting our time and you just paid $50 for a application fee or nothing. Know what your credit score is. Even though you're young, you probably don't know what it is. Get to know your credit score. There's things that I can send you. I'm going to put a couple of more links in the chat here for you just to kind of get your mindset on, okay, people are looking at what you're doing. You can't just go and say, hey, I want to get a loan for 85 grand and your credit's garbage. I use what's called Mint. Mint will keep track of all of your financial transactions. It tells you when your bills are due. It tells you if you're late. It warns you on, hey, if you don't do this, your credit score is going to suffer. It's never too early to look at your credit, because that's initially what's going to get you in or out the door. It's going to determine whether you qualify or you don't. Being late, that matters. Be on time. If you have a problem, you're going to be late with a creditor or a bill, call them and say, hey, man, I'm going to be a little bit late, and they'll work with you. But don't show up trying to get something and you're like, man, I wish I'd have known this before. Get familiar with your credit. I'm throwing a couple of more links out there. There's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. I encourage you all, and I'll tell you what I'll do even one better. For everyone that puts let's see, Christy, I'll have to get with you this, but I will buy 10 copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad for people that send you an email the fastest. It's just a great book that lets you know. Some people are very passive. This book will let you know that, hey, life is going to push you around. Either you can just sit there and take it, or you can do something about it. You can put yourself in a bracket where you can get an attorney. You can get you a tax professional that will help you with not paying as much taxes. That's what the rich do. It's a great book to have. And if you want it bad enough, send Christy an email. The first 10 people to do that, I will buy that book for you. I just want to give you as much as a head start of things that they don't teach you in school, the things you learn, things that I learned the hard way through just life, hard knocks. I thought I was very naive. Hey, I'm going to go into the Navy. I'm going to have a nice life, plush and 2.5 fence and kids. And no, that's not life. Life is hard. You have to work through it. You're going to be pushed around. You got to be ready you have to be proactive. You have to seriously be ready, because life is not going to be bells and everything's not roses. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to be diligent. You're going to have to look forward to things pushing back. You have to fight it. And that's pretty much all. I've took a lot of you guys' time. I appreciate it, but feel free, Christy, leave my email address. So if anyone has any personal questions or anything to follow up, I'll be more than happy to help you with that.
Excellent job. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll get some emails coming in for Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 10 copies. And again, your full address. I'm not even gonna ask you for your address. If you only send me 113 Elm Street, I'm not gonna get the rest of it. So city, state, zip code included. And Mr. Douglas, thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Mr. Douglas before we take a 10-minute break?